Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bucha and welcome to Bucha's Views. Today we're going to be making this, about a 7.5 inch Wenge plate with a Lichtenberg burn into it that we filled with resin. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, we have our piece of Wenge here. It is 8 by 16 inches. We have it marked right in the center, so we should get 2 square blanks out of this one when we cut it. On this side, I have marked out just over a 7 3/4 inch circle. So we'll cut that out with the bandsaw. We'll go ahead and get a chop saw, cut it right in half, and go from there. So one thing I didn't realize when I was cutting these pieces is that I have a kink in my bandsaw blade. I realized it about, 2 hours after I cut these pieces when I was cutting something else, and my bandsaw blade snapped. Watching the videos back, I mean it's clear that it's a severe kink, and that's probably where I was getting such terrible noise from. Between that and misaligned guides caused some really bad cuts that didn't affect the overall finish of the product, but it ended up biting me later on in the video, as you'll clearly see, with a little nub left on the side of the Wenge. In my opinion, the glue up on something like this is probably the most important thing. You'll see I'll put glue on both the tenon and on the workpiece itself. On the tenon, I actually drilled a hole in the previous clip just to try and line up the workpiece, the center of the workpiece with the center of the tenon. That way I'd be roughly centered when I put it on the lathe. But I ended up covering that mark I made on the plate with a little bit too much glue, and it ended up being nearly impossible to see. That's why I have a light underneath it. It did get really close, but in the end it really wasn't worth the trouble. So going forward, I probably won't end up doing that again. That was more of just a let's see if it works kind of thing. So you remember how I said that the bandsaw left a little bit of a nub on the Wenge plate? This is what I was talking about. It's really obvious that you can see it when I start up the lathe. I thought I could get away with just turning it down and not having any issues. I really should have been using a live center here, but I decided against it for whatever reason. I probably wanted to get a better shot of the plate spinning up, and it ended up biting me pretty hard. Threw the whole tenon off center and had to reset everything. But on the plus side, the glue job worked really well. And normally, if this was like a subpar glue job, it would have just broken at the glue or broken at the tenon, but it stayed together really well. So by no means am I a professional woodworker or wood turner. I've been doing this on and off for about 5 or 6 years. I started off on a lathe that I made out of a sewing machine I found on the side of the road. After that, I bumped up to a Harbor Freight lathe that couldn't hold square to save its life. And I've been running this jet lathe here for about 1.5 years, and it has done wonders. Nothing to be said against the proper tool for the proper job, and this is definitely the proper tool for what I do. It's not too big, and it is dead square. So, for reference, I have very little idea of what I'm doing. Between being self-taught and using YouTube as a great resource, I really don't have any proper training. I went to one class out here that was provided by Woodworkers Emporium. They are a wood supply and like wood turning supply store out here in Las Vegas. And they are wonderful. I mean, if you want custom-made bandsaw blades or really high-end machinery, they are the people to go to in town. But other than that, I've basically taught myself everything I need to know on how to turn. That's why I have a tendency to make a lot of really dumb mistakes. But in those mistakes, I learn for the future. I mean, that's how we learn how to do a lot of these cool things, is by screwing them up, even if it's at a significant cost sometimes. This was my first time doing a Lichtenberg burn for an actual project and not just like on a test piece. Unfortunately, I live in Las Vegas, and by the time I shot the video outside, it was like 106 outside. So the GoPro I'm using to film kept faulting out. Apparently, it can't run that hot for that long. So I only have a little bit of video to show for it. Either way, this is probably one of the coolest effects you can do into a flat piece of wood like this. I'm really looking forward to do like a river table with the Lichtenberg burn into it. It is interesting, but it's not going to detract from the wood. One of the big things I found while doing the tests with the Lichtenberg figures was I need to make sure to clean it out really well before I put any resin. One of the things I found is it'll make it a little bit murky if I don't. So that's why I take a little bit extra time, clean it out. Off camera, I blow it out with the air gun a couple times to try and make sure I have everything out, and then just come back to it, continue brushing it out. This is probably where I would have liked to use some sanding sealer or some wood bleach to try and get the discoloration up, but being that it's Wenge, I'm not super concerned about the discoloration. I kind of think that the contrast in the end makes it look a little bit better and definitely adds to that dark element of the wood burn. So something I don't show is after the resin cured, I had a spot that was void of resin. So trying to think outside the box, I ended up filling it with some really thin super glue, some CA glue, and using some accelerator. That was a mistake because when it cures, it turned white. Unfortunately, because the accelerator, it left this white streak in the bowl, in the burn, that I mean, it's just ugly. I can be totally honest about that. It is really the biggest part about why I was unhappy with this one. It definitely turned me off of using super glue on projects, despite knowing that it can fill these kind of voids in resin. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about it now, but that is why we do these things, so we can learn for the future.